Today is January 2nd, 2019. If my grandmother were still alive today, it would be her 100th birthday. Today I feel like sharing a story from her life. My grandmother was born in Holland, January 2nd, 1919. Can't remember the name of the town she grew up in. I could ask my mother, but she's asleep right now because she's on the other side of the world. I only know a few details of her life in Holland, but the one that really sticks in my mind comes from the war. So she was a young woman during the Nazi occupation of Holland. Before my grandmother married my grandfather, he was in the underground, the resistance against the occupying Nazi forces. And she would hide messages that he carried in the post of his bicycle seat. At one point he had to go into hiding because some Nazi collaborators were out to get him and he had to go into hiding. But that's not the story that really stuck with me. I guess my grandmother would have been in her early 20s during the occupation, and one time her mother got really angry at her because they had two ovens, an indoor oven and an outdoor oven, as I remember the story. And the outdoor oven was allowed to fall into disuse and got really dirty and full of cobwebs, and my grandmother decided she was going to clean it. She starts cleaning it and her mother just tore her a new one, got really angry, didn't explain why. My grandmother didn't find out until after the war that the town records were buried inside their outdoor oven, and they wanted it to look like no one had used that oven in years because the Nazis were taking young men away to work in different places. I know factories, farms, they were taking them for labor. They were only taking young men over a certain age, and without the town records they couldn't prove how old anyone was, and so a lot of young men who would have been taken away to be forced labor were saved because the records were buried in my grandmother's family's outdoor oven. I love this story. I'm sure there are lots more stories like this, and I would have loved to have heard them, but I've lost my chance. There was actually a little bit more to the story I wanted to tell and I forgot until now, so I'm kind of just adding this on the end. There was someone in the family, it might have been my grandmother's uncle or somebody. He had a couple sons and the Nazis took them away to use as labor and then told him, now go harvest all those potatoes in your field because we want them. And he just said, no, you give me back my boys or those potatoes rot where they lay. And he got his boys back, which I'm kind of amazed they didn't just shoot him. But he did it. So today, on what would have been my grandmother's 100th birthday, I want to say to all of you, talk to your grandparents, find out their stories. You'll be very happy you did later. I wish I had some more stories from my grandmother. Also, I wish I had her pancake recipe and her homemade soup recipe, because those were amazing. Go have a conversation with your grandparents and give them a great big hug.